Okay, good morning everybody. First lesson of the course. First lesson, which is this week morning and next Sunday morning, a little bit long because we have a double subject. Normally we have just one subject, then we have exercise, then we have meditation, but I want you to have a good start and give you some insight. If you came to the orientation workshop, you will recognize some of those things that I'm going to explain. It's about energy, basically, Yin and Yang, Shiva and Shakti. And the reason why that is important is because yoga is not based on the physical body, in contrast with what most people think. If you ask people what is a yoga, then the answer very often is physical exercise. It's exercise. So exercise is an important part, but the reason why we exercise also is very different from what most people think it is. It's basically just a necessity to create a proper condition that then allows you to meditate properly. The meditation from most yoga classes is lacking, not present. And exercise is just exercise, which is not wrong, don't get me wrong. Exercise is always good for health and many other things, but yoga is different. And if you do it correctly, the way you exercise is very different. And it's not just like that. There is a very clear reason why it is different. And that's something that you don't learn in most teacher training programs. And that's something that actually, honestly, most yoga teachers don't know about, don't understand. So that is the fundament of yoga, energy. Everything is energy. Everything in the universe is energy, including you and me. And if you practice yoga correctly, you will see that you learn to control energy amazingly. But to be able to do that, we have to approach this in a very systematic way. Because what is energy? You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't hear it, you can't touch it. So for most people, talking about energy is elusive, unless it is limited to the light or your washing machine or, electric appliances. But when it comes to energy as the fundament of the human being, the fundament of life, the fundament of the universe, for most people that is just a mystery and it is elusive. It's not that difficult though. First of all, you remember we have the Yin Yang model. I'll keep it short because it was in the introduction workshop. You have a dark side in the Yin Yang model and you have a light side in the Yin Yang model. The dark side has a white eye and the light side has a black eye. That is not decoration. Most people think, nice, looks mysterious. I like this symbolism. I like this decoration. We sometimes tattoo yin and yang on our body, or we have a necklace with a yin and yang hanger or earrings, yin and yang. But the yin and yang model is not just a decoration. It has a very deep meaning that is actually not mysterious. It's really practical. The problem that we have as modern, rational human beings is that we function very different from the ancient human beings. Ancient human beings not being subjected to 20 years of education in a very systematical way that you and all of you have gone through since you were born. Ancient human beings' way of thinking was totally different. Ancient human beings thought in terms of images, thought in terms of symbolical language. That is why all ancient books are written in symbolical language. And the modern human being, with their rational thought, is not capable of understanding what is behind the symbolism anymore. By living yoga for so many years, you slowly but certainly develop insight in the meaning behind the symbolism, and that is what I'm trying to share with you. Very practical, no nonsense. There will be no mysteries and dogmas left after this. This is a symbol expressing the model of the human being. This is a symbol actually expressing the model of the universe, which is the same, in fact, when it comes to energy, as a human being. It's a ball of energy. Not just energy, it's a ball of energy that consists out of two poles. There is a plus and there is a minus. Plus and minus. Now the reason why it has a dark eye and a white eye is that it is not two-dimensional. It's three-dimensional. The light side has a characteristic of the dark side in it. The dark side has a characteristic of the light side in it. That means it is one. As a human being, I too have feminine and masculine characteristics. It is not that because I'm a man physically that I am yang, and that you, because you are physically a woman, that you are yin. That's not how it works. We're all a ball of energy that consists out of both, and the reason why Yin and Yang, or Shiva and Shakti as we call it in Sanskrit, why it is important is because that energy has a tendency to be out of balance. It has a tendency to be out of balance, and when energy is out of balance, it wreaks havoc. It leads to chaos, it leads to conflict. And most human beings, if you're honest about yourself and your own life, you are suffering from chaos and conflict. It is not for nothing that all holy books go out from the point of view that life is a valley of tears, that life is suffering. Ask any Buddhist monk, and they will tell you life is suffering. The problem with this is that when we say that life is suffering, most people who say that say, just accept it. You can't change it. And that is wrong. Yoga says, yes, life is suffering and misery and what have you, but it says it with a smile. Why? Because we know that we can control it. Because we know that we can change it. It's not easy. It will take many, many years before you get a certain grip on it, and it will take the rest of your life to perfect it. But that doesn't matter. When you understand this and you are on this path, life becomes beautiful. Everything starts making sense. All the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. You start to see that your misery has a purpose. Instead of just suffering from your misery, you see that it's actually trying to teach you something. So instead of feeling bad or miserable, you start to investigate. Instead of drowning yourself in your sadness and your misery, you ask yourself, what the hell did I do wrong that has led me to this situation, that I'm so suffering today? So you try to figure out what happened. You don't blame other people. You look at yourself. What did I do that I ended up in this situation that caused me to be in a conflict, that caused me to feel like a failure, that caused me to feel so miserable? And that's incredibly refreshing. No blame, no guilt, no regret. Just try to figure out what happened. And you, from that moment on, you start to grow and develop like never before. It's incomparable with what you learn in school. This is all based on yourself, your insights, your courage to dare to look in the mirror. But to do this, we need to develop a certain quality. That is the quality of contemplation. Contemplation is a mental state of being that only happens when Shiva and Shakti are in harmony. Maybe you remember at the introduction workshop, we showed the chakras, which we will discuss next week a little bit, and then later more in detail. The energy has a tendency to go to the lower levels, where there are your fear, desire, ego, and ambition. But inside, wisdom, your ability to contemplate and see complex issues, that is on the higher levels of the chakras. In fact, it is in the highest chakra, the crown chakra. If energy is not there, you appear to be dumb. Regardless of all the education that you have received, you are not capable of seeing, not capable of making connections, seeing the logic, the common sense, which is not so common. And that is where yoga comes in. Yoga can give you all the philosophical insight, but if you don't have the possibility to contemplate, it just remains a theory. However, if you learn to bring your energy to higher levels of consciousness, you automatically start to meditate. It happens when you drink a cup of coffee in the first floor in Starbucks, when you sit in front of the window, staring out in the street, actually looking at nothing in particular. Suddenly you have a bright idea. Suddenly you think, wow, where did that come from? Don't you have such experiences in life? That you are facing a very difficult, complex issue, a conflict with your boss or a family member, and the more you think about it, sleepless nights, headache, the more difficult it seems to get, the more complicated the problem seems to become. After 2-3 weeks of headache, sleepless nights, lot of suffering, there comes a point you're so tired of it all that you say, oh, let's just go to the corner and get a nice ice cream. I don't want to think about this issue anymore. It's impossible to solve. What happens? You stop thinking about it. As long as you try to understand the problem mentally, you are blocking your energy. And it's not possible to go up and fuel your crown chakra. The moment that you surrender, which is a subject we will discuss in detail later on, the moment that you give up and then just enjoy that ice cream, sitting on a bench, thinking about nothing, without any effort at all, the light goes on. Literally, the light goes on. Without thinking of the problem, the energy starts to circulate. Poof! Suddenly you have an insight while you were just enjoying your ice cream, and you think, wow, I got the answer, finally. All of you have had such moments without realizing it. But those moments are rare. Doesn't happen often. So we suffer in daily life. Yoga gives you the tools to create a condition where your contemplations become longer and longer, and the moments where your energies are blocked because of your complex thought processes and things your attempts to grasp things mentally, your energy blocked, not allowing you to complicate, becomes shorter. So more contemplation, less thought that actually makes things complicated. And you become a problem solver, naturally. And with that, all kinds of other things develop. It will help you in your professional career. Managers, people at the top of the companies or organizations that they work at, they have this ability to solve problems. People that stay below, on lower levels of work, they just don't have that ability. So you will see, if you work in an organization or a company where there is room to evolve, to grow, to climb the ladder, you will be one of those that will climb the ladder successfully because of your ability to contemplate and grasp problems. Yeah? Yin and Yang. Now, Yin and Yang is Chinese. This model is also Chinese. Everybody knows Yin and Yang. That is why we use it. Just for practical reasons. I shouldn't push too hard because it falls apart. You remember from. I have to buy a new one. In Sanskrit, Yin energy is called Shiva. Yang energy is called Shakti. Harmony, the balance between the two energies, is called Sattva. This is basic yoga. And yet, most yoga teachers have never heard of this. If they did, they often got it wrong. Shiva energy is feminine. Mataro? Is that correct? If you know a little bit about yoga, you will say, Ron, you're lying. Shiva is masculine energy. Oh yeah, why? Yeah, because Shiva, that is the name of a male god. This is a warrior. But do you remember the yin-yang model? Where the dark side had a white eye and the white side had a dark eye? It is the same principle. It is a secret that most people don't know. And it shows that most people haven't studied yoga properly. Because if you read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, you can still question me whether I'm right. Shiva energy is feminine, Shakti energy is masculine. Yeah, so you say. You can argue. No, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in chapter 3 and 4, where it goes very deep into energy, it is about Kundalini energy. Kundalini is called Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini is the ultimate masculine energy. Kundalini Shakti. Not Kundalini Shiva, Kundalini Shakti. And there are several verses in chapter 4 that refer to Shakti being the energy that is masculine. So that confirms what I'm saying is not my own fantasy. It is a matter, first of all, of course, of studying that book. It is the fundament of yoga, the Bible of yoga. But more importantly is that you are being, how do you call that again? Being properly introduced to yoga. The most yoga initiated? Yes, initiated into yoga. There's another word that will come in my moment of eating an ice cream, it will come. Yeah, being properly introduced, initiated into yoga by somebody who is also properly initiated into yoga. Now, the issue and the tragedy of human life, I say tragedy with a smile, because it's just the reality of the universe. The tragedy of human life and the whole universe is that energy has a tendency to condense. The universe, before the Big Bang, was pure energy. In the Bible, it says, first there was the Word, a vibration. That vibration is Om, and the being or the intelligence behind that vibration is called Brahma. Brahma is like God. But when we talk about God, I don't like to use the word God because there is so much misconception and dogma about God and religion.
But when you finish this course, you will have a totally different view of what God means. Brahma is God. It is pure energy. There were no planets, no stars, nothing. There was nothing, just emptiness. That was the condition of Sattva. Harmony, pure harmony. As a result of a tiny disturbance, in the Bible it is called a sin. As a result of a tiny disturbance, a subtle desire, Brahma or Om became disharmonious, and a frequency started to occur in the energy vibration. It was harmonious, but a subtle desire, the apple that Eve or Adam ate, causes an undulation. This undulation becomes more and more pronounced. The disharmony, the fluctuation between Shiva and Shakti becomes more and more pronounced. The theory is, and not only in yoga but also modern scientists, the theory is that there was sheer energy first that lost its harmony and started to condense. When energy condenses, the first matter that it turns into is air. Then when the condensation continues, air becomes liquid. Then when the condensation proceeds, liquid becomes solid matter. The universe, first being energy, then became gases, air, gas. The universe is full of gas. Gas becomes liquid, liquid becomes solid matter. Hence the formation of planets and stars. Hence the formation of you and me. You are solid matter on the outside. But like the universe started with an energy, the human being starts with an energy too. That is your soul or spirit. That is why yoga is not based on your physical body, it's based on energy, because if the energy is in a good condition, your physical body automatically is in a good condition too. And that is the secret behind all of this. So we take care of our energy. We need the physical body. Do maintenance work like you do on your car or your house, because without it, the energy becomes poor and you have nothing to work with. So we have this unavoidable duty to do our physical asanas. You may not like it, you may prefer to just sit down on your cushion and meditate. That works, but it is more powerful, more efficient if you at least do some work with your physical body, because that takes care of a good quality of energy. To make it a little bit more practical, talking about the universe and what have you, human being starts as a ball of energy and then manifests into a physical body. The moment that you are conceived in the belly of your mom, that is where energy starts to condense and transform into matter, manifest into matter. The whole principle of harmony can also be very practically explained. Most children are in a state of harmony when they are born. No, not most, all. The moment that you lose your harmony is the moment when your memory starts. So most people's memory does not go back further than 6-7 years old. The first 6-7 years of life, most people have no memory at all. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. the longer you stay in a harmonious condition, the better you develop as a human being. Children who grow up in abusive family, who are being abused, who undergo violence, or if you move house. Children who move house often start their memory the moment that they move house. Why? Well, moving house turns everything upside down. Everything that was familiar for you when you were born is suddenly gone, and you have to get used to something totally new. So there, for many children, the disruption starts. Moving is not necessarily violence or abuse, but it causes very great disturbance. Even for adults, you know, the top 2 issues that are impacting people most in terms of stress, the first one is losing a partner. When your partner dies. The second one is moving house. Most people don't realize that, but moving is very disruptive. Children, I remember myself when we moved, my memory started. Big time. That was at the age of 8. Before that I have memory too. There was not that much harmony in my early years, but that is a point that really stands out. Moving to another part of town, another house, another school, etc. Energy, therefore, has a tendency to condense. And you know, the chakras that contain the biggest disruptions are at the bottom. So human being naturally has a tendency to function from fear, desire, and ego. Your education helps to bring your energy up, but education is not perfect. It's not harmonious. It causes a lot of stress too, and there's a lot of emotion and desire and fear involved in education too. Yoga is a more neutral way. It gives you all the tools how to deal eventually also with your education. So Shiva has a tendency to dominate. And why is that not desirable? Because when Shiva dominates, we have a tendency to become gloomy, lazy. That condition is called tamas. You can see in the handout, I described this. This word comes back many times in your yoga training. When tamas dominates, that's usually Sunday morning when you wake up. In weekdays you have to wake up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. The alarm clock wakes you up. You have to go and perform your duties, either take care of your family or go to work or both. But Sunday morning you can turn around and sleep a little bit more and you, nice. But when time passes throughout the day, you become more and more heavy. And at some point even dark and gloomy. That leads to depression and negative thought. If you have a little bit of discipline, you grab your bicycle and you ride around town, or you go and hike or make a long walk in the park or neighborhood. What happens when you do that is you generate Shakti energy. Shakti energy destroys the tamas condition. The condition that occurs when Shakti dominates is called rajas. And rajas is what we need in our yoga practice to create harmony. That sounds strange because we want harmony, so why not go directly to harmony? Because we have a natural tendency to be in tamas. So when you're low, you must first go high before you can end up in the middle. First you need a kick in the butt to move, generate Shakti energy, And then you come down a little bit in a measured way and end up in harmony. Do you understand why this is practical and why this is important? You connect the things that I told you and it starts making sense. When you're in harmony, you become contemplative in a very natural way. It is the highest condition of consciousness a human being can be in. That is why you want to learn to control these conditions, at least to some extent. It is there where you have your brilliant ideas. Remember at the workshop I told you, you can have 3 degrees from university, but not be so clever, in spite of all your theoretical knowledge. On the other hand, you can meet people, homeless people or otherwise, who have had no education, cannot even read or write. And yet when you talk with them, they seem to be so wise. Now there's something very interesting. If you combine intellect and contemplation, if you combine high education with yoga, genius occurs. And genius is something that you see in someone like Einstein or Galileo. Those people were far ahead of their time with their ideas on technology and the universe and energy and what have you. They were not only highly educated, they were very spiritual. And spirituality is only real if there is energy here. Because this is where the spirit is. This is where inside wisdom lies. It is where inspiration comes from. You know what inspiration means? It is actually derived from Latin. Inspiration means, or in Latin is in spiritus. In spiritus, in the spirit. When you're in the spirit, you're brilliant. When you're all out of the spirit, you're just like an average other human being, functioning mentally and physically. So that you all, we all, me included, we all can function on a higher level if we understand what keeps us down and what brings us up, our consciousness. And actually, that is what yoga is about. Long before education, this was the form to educate people. And not only in the East, in the West you had the temples and the monasteries where actually people were doing the same thing. Maybe a little bit in a different way, but it was all about the same principle. Monasteries are always far away in the desert or high up on a mountain, far away from any distraction. That is why monks all wear the same clothes and they do everything in silence to avoid any disturbance and disruption in the energy household. And it enabled them to study huge books. We think about monks as religious, but actually they were the scholars of the past. While the normal people worked in the field, a tiny few people were in the monastery developing this condition basically. Ancient science, long before we had electronic tools to help us, ancient science was based on contemplation, energy in the highest chakra that allows you to understand very complex things that you cannot see. Ancient people knew about the universe. Not concrete science, of course, but they knew about the forces in the universe. They knew about what has led to the manifestation of organic life. When you grew up as a child, your parents or your teachers read stories to you, fairy tales about witches, about sorcerers, about magicians. And you think, wow, such a nice story. But you know, the witches and the sorcerers and the magicians of the past, they were the scientists of our modern day. Only when I started this story, the ancient people functioned in a totally different way. So they wrapped it up in something mysterious. The reason why a sorcerer wears a conical shaped hat, that is not to look fancy or mysterious, that is to connect with heaven. It is an indication, a symbolical indication that he's functioning or she functioning on a higher level of consciousness in the crown chakra. A witch flying on a broom with the full moon. That has nothing to do with a human being flying on a broomstick. That is symbolism. That is a female sorceress, magician, who has higher abilities of consciousness, and flying is symbolism for insight, oversight. And ancient people, the sorcerers, the magicians, and the witches, they had rituals, which is pure symbolism. If you understand it, it's basically empty, but it had a very clear meaning. It was to distinguish themselves from the normal people. It was as if saying, here I am special, I have something to offer to you. And to establish that, they impressed the normal people with magic, with tricks, with mystery. So you all become witches and sorcerers and magicians in your own way. But it is subtle. You're not going to wear a conical shaped hat or a dress of a witch or a sorcerer. You remain yourself. We live in a totally different world now. But incredibly powerful to develop this. That is why yoga is surrounded by so much secrecy. We will come to that. At the end of the workshop, we practice a little bit of yoga, a little bit of asana, and finishing it off with a short meditation. And all of you, almost all of you, and I think all of you, you felt something special. That is this. That is the proof, already the very first time as a total beginner. It is the proof that you are actually manipulating your energy household. The fact that you felt something special shows that Sattva is actually occurring. Now the problem is, the moment that we open our eyes and we start talking, worse, you start moving and go about your daily things, grabbing a bus or a taxi or walking, you kind of lose that condition. And you have to get back to your yoga mat and your cushion again to bring it back. But if it becomes a regular occurrence, that condition remains more and more, becomes more and more permanent. In the beginning, you lose it very quickly. In the end, it becomes a condition that is with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that requires the very systematic approach that we have. Okay, that is the first subject then.
Questions so far? Okay.